Sade Give me the power, I beg of you!
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Sade Sellers, the horror writer and creator of the amazing Afro horror. How you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. Thank you.
Oh, no, it's truly an honor. So what can you tell us about Afro horror for the people that don't know you?
Yeah, so Afro Horror is it's a podcast. It started out as a podcast 3 years ago, and now it's expanded to a merchandise store and a clubhouse room and watch parties. And it was originally designed just to give flowers to Black artists in the horror community who may have been overlooked behind and in front of the camera. So DPs, writers, actors as well, directors, but also like makeup artists, set designers, things like that. I think what's really important for people to know, just because we're called Afro horror doesn't mean that we are only limited to Black artists. We celebrate all types of horror because, historically there's not a lot of Black horror available. so we would have tapped out by season 1 if we had only talked about a few. But it's about introducing others who may have not watched some historical Black horror that are like really sacred to me. Like when I talk about Blackula or A Vampire in Brooklyn, maybe some people haven't seen that. So it's like introducing new fans and celebrating old artists in the past as well.
And it's something I've talked about a lot is how ahead of its time horror has always been. I mean, look at Night of the Living Dead and the social commentary that has on it, having a Black lead character in that movie.
Yeah.
And, look at Tales from the Hood, which is another one that has a lot of social meaning. The People Under the Stairs, these movies that are horror movies first, but they had that social commentary. And I've talked about it before too, especially women in horror. The final girl was invented in horror, and it shows in the horror genre, women weren't just girls that were naked and then getting their heads cut off. You have women that are badasses that are beating the hell out of these men and even outsmarting men. Horror was always ahead of its time in those type of things. So to hear you doing this, and for those of you that would like to listen to it, which I strongly recommend, all the links are down here in the description. So make sure you're following her. Make sure you're listening to Afro Horror. It's so amazing. I was so honored when I reached out and she was accepting of this. It was something that made me very proud because I love people that want to make change for the better. So having you on here, ma'am, is so important to me, and I'm so appreciative of having you on. So we know what you've done with Afro Horror and how you are becoming such a staple in the horror genre and wanting to make change for the better. And no, I love it. I love it to death. But I want to know where that started for you. I want to know, take it back to the past and talk about your first horror movie. And your first horror movie was?
It was Child's Play. This shirt you're wearing right now, it's triggering.
And it's funny because Child's Play, to me, I've always said that Child's Play, if it wasn't for Seed of Chucky, I think would be my favorite horror franchise. It's always been inventive, but funny and scary. Do you remember how old you were the first time you watched it?
Yeah, I was 8 years old. So it had came out in 92, I believe. So I obviously was too young to watch it when it came out, but I had a cousin named Charlie, and I hope he watches this because I don't think I've ever told him how traumatizing his torture was for me. But as cousins do, he's only a couple of years older than me. He tortured me. He's made it his mission to torture me. And the one thing he knew I was 8, was that I was afraid of scary movies. I couldn't even this is also 1998. So I think you would remember, maybe some people won't. We had the VHS boxes, with the art cover. I couldn't be around the box covers. I had another cousin who had a set of Goosebumps books. I couldn't walk into his room because I was just so afraid of seeing Slappy. I couldn't do it. So what he did was, when we had this horrible babysitter who my mom ended up firing anyway, but he locked me in my room with my, I remember it was a white television set that had the built-in VHS, at the bottom. And he put on a Chucky tape that they had rented, even though my mom said no horror movies. And he locked me in the room and just with the movie playing. And I was just in a corner sobbing, crying. And it's crazy now that I run Afro Horror, but I remember that day so vividly because I was so scared.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a note here. Fuck Charlie.
Yeah. Oh, right. And
Okay.
his name is Charlie, my cousin Charlie, and then Charles Lee Ray from the series. So
Right.
it's like this connected thing. So
That's awesome.
to
So
this
I
day,
mean,
I've never
obviously,
dated a man named Charlie, and I probably never would.
yeah, you're gonna meet the most handsome, chiseled dude. Be like, "Hi, how are you?" He's gonna be like, "Hey, I'm Charlie," and you're just gonna be like a cloud
No.
of dust where you
No.
used to be.
I'm done.
So, and obviously, a movie like Child's Play is very iconic, and for you to watch it at such a young age and a impressionable age, traumatizing age, as you like to say, do you remember through all that which scene it was that affected you the most?
Yeah, it was Chucky going through the kitchen. You never actually saw him, right? But I just remember the little pitter patter of his feet in the flour and then pushing the babysitter or an aunt woman out the window. It's like that's the scene where I lost it completely. And I think it was my mom or my sister who rescued me. Someone heard me, or I think actually it was the babysitter. She was pissed, even though she was a bad babysitter, because she ignored us a lot to talk to her boyfriend, very typical babysitter trope.
Yep.
She was actually really pissed that he did that and freed me from my prison. So I didn't get too much far into the movie, actually. And it wouldn't be until 10 years later that I actually watched the whole thing because I was just so afraid. So that's the only scene I made it up to. And then she freed me. I was safe.
Right. Well, let me ask you this then, as an adult who has rewatched the movie, because that's a traumatizing scene always, because like you said, at this point in the movie, Chucky is a doll, but you're not even, they're kind of making it look like Andy is the one doing this. So at this point, you really don't know. But now that you're older and you've watched it, do you know what your favorite scene from Child's Play is?
Oh yeah, it's where I can't remember her name, but from Seventh Heaven, because I used to watch Seventh Heaven like crazy. She's holding Chucky and she's like,
I said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
It's such a good reveal because it's just she felt so gaslit this whole time. My son is not evil. I know my son is not evil. And it was vindicated, but also super scary at the same time. I love that scene.
Because that's the first time you really see Chucky come to life. That's the first time that we as the viewer see it. And we see him so foul-mouthed and scary.
And it's an hour into the film, which is you think about that now, it wouldn't work in 2021 because film audiences are so impatient. If they don't see it in the first 15 minutes, it's they're checking out. It's it is a slow build when you look back at Child's Play. You're sitting in for a thriller for the first hour, and the thriller is is this kid crazy? And then after the hour mark, it's oh, this is a horror film. This doll is alive.
Oh, and it hits hard too.
Yeah.
So I hate saying it like this because it sounds so dark, but what would you say your favorite death from Child's Play is?
It's actually Chucky's death. It's him crawling on his the body is discombobulated from the head, and the head is still able to bite people and grab people. It's just they tried so hard to get rid of him, and he keeps coming back. And I really enjoy the breakdown of the doll. It's such a great arc to go from this shiny toy to this destructive black and white and melty little creature. It's actually his death. It's very satisfying.
Well, I love right before that, after he's been burned in the fire and you think it's over, but then he sees Andy in the hallway and he's burned and he's standing there holding that knife. So epic. I love
Charles Lee Ray is no quitter. And if we can take any lesson away from Child's Play is that never give up on your kill. Ever.
Right. if you have an 8-year-old boy that you want to kill, just don't give up. Keep going after him.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So we talked about your first horror movie and how this movie affected you. But now I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie?
Oh,
what is your favorite?
Hey, guy.
I see him back there. What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Even though Ghostface is my guy and I love that series, it's actually The Descent. I've said that since the first time I watched that movie in a theater. I remember I remember the visceral reaction I had to it. I still think it's one of the best stories out there. I love that. I know it's cliche, you guys, because I'm a woman, but I love the all-female cast. I think they're amazing. And I really do think it's quite scary and effective. I can rewatch that movie and I'm still finding things 10 plus years later, but that story is just so good. It's that the betrayal between Juno and the other women, and Juno is so great of an evil character, but you're rooting for her too. It's my favorite. I love it so much.
It's a great movie. I love it. I'm not a fan of part 2. I think that The Descent, much like Jaws, I think those are movies that should have been standalone films. You should not have tried to create a sequel with those. Because I love the end of that movie. Like, I thought that was the perfect dark ending. And, you know, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. You know, you got to have dark endings in the world. And I love the ending of The Descent. And that's one of those movies where you got the friendship that's kind of tattered, where she's been sleeping with her boyfriend, and the one girl such a great movie. And that's another movie I'm with you. I could watch that movie over and over, and it's scary. Those things are terrifying.
And it's a movie that uses very, very small, limited CGI. It's like, it really heavily relies on the makeup and lighting and sound. Like, it is a film. Like, when you watch The Descent, you're like, every department did their job. And this is what happens when you have artists in every department do their jobs and do it well. It's like, you make a great film. I just love that movie so much.
And see, I'm a practical effects guy as well. But I do like some CGI. If you use CGI, use it sparingly and make it make sense. You know, I don't need to watch The Avengers when I go and see a horror movie.
Yeah, right.
I would rather see a mediocre practical effect than a CGI effect that's not going to hold up 10 years. I mean, I'm looking at you, Freddy vs. Jason. When you look at all that CGI blood, it just looks so bad. And don't get me wrong, I will always stand Freddy vs. Jason because it's Freddy and Jason in the same movie. But the 3D, the CGI just does not hold up in that movie. Like, when you watch it now, the CGI does not hold up at all. And in horror movies, it's all about practical effects. I mean, you go back to Tom Savini and the makeup, like you were talking about, you know, Creepshow, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Psycho, these movies that were built on practical effects. The Thing, I think, you know, American Werewolf in London, one of the, even to this day, I've never seen a werewolf transformation as good as the one in American Werewolf in London.
Well, I don't know, the girls from Ginger Snap did a pretty good one too. I really enjoyed watching them.
Ginger Snaps.
No, you're right. Ginger Snaps. I should have said Ginger Snaps too, because it's a tie, honestly, between Ginger Snaps and The Descent. Honestly.
Ginger Snaps is finally getting the recognition it deserves because of Joe Bob. But I mean, it's one of those movies that, again, so underrated in the horror genre. I'm glad it's finally starting to get the following that it really deserves to have.
My stepdad was the one that showed me Ginger Snaps. Like, he's not married to my mom anymore, but I remember when they first got together, he's like, you should watch Ginger Snaps, and we're going to watch it together. And I watched it, and I was just like, who is this weirdo my mom married? But this is a dope movie. Thank you. It was such a great bonding experience for us.
Oh, for sure. Nothing brings you. That's why I like to talk about your first horror movie, because to me, it's always like, it's like drugs. And I'm not saying do drugs, people. Please don't think that's what I'm saying. But you do them the first time and you get that high, and then you're always chasing that dragon. I feel like that's what it is with horror movies. Like, you watch Outhouse from '86 was my first horror movie. And still my favorite horror movie to this day is between that and Cabin in the Woods. Like, those are neck and neck with each other. But
put Chucky up here. He should get, the wall is going to be full by the next month, but I should put him up here. You know what this is from? Everyone gets this one wrong, and it always shocks me.
Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
Yeah, I was like, you guys, it's Screw Your Past. No one ever gets it right. So I was like, you know what this one's from?
I can't. From right here, it looks like a mix. I can barely see it. It looks like it's either Indiana Jones or Jurassic Park. From
Jurassic Park. But the third one, where Alan is surrounded by the raptors because he has the eggs and he doesn't know it.
There's a glare on there, so I can see the hat and I can see the shirt. That's all I can see. I can't believe nobody gets to Screw Your Past. Nancy.
No one gets it. And I've only had her for a week. You know, she just arrived from Etsy, and I've been on a few podcasts and Zooms, and they're like, I don't get it. I'm like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I picked the most random shot from Nightmare on Elm Street, but I'm like, this is pretty iconic, I think.
Yeah. Screw you. You got your hall pass? Screw your pass.
It's just so unnecessary too, Nancy. Like, she's doing her job. She's a hall monitor. Check the badge. Like, what is the attitude, lady?
She's gonna talk shit to the girl in the hallway that now has too much power and is gonna follow her all year now.
Yeah, Nancy should have used that same courage to go against Freddie. I'm like, you had so much hate for the hall pass lady, but you had no heat for Freddie. Like, where is this?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Freddie is her boyfriend now, so.
Well,
See, that to me is one of my favorite scenes from Nightmare on Elm Street.
with the phone.
I mean, oh my god, that got me so bad when I was a kid. I was like, oh, because you just watched her tear it out of the wall.
That's
So,
pretty.
I know we're getting way off track here,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
every time we do a franchise movie, I always gotta ask, because there's gonna be two questions I ask you about Child's Play now.
Oh, great.
What is your favorite film in the Child's Play franchise?
It's so funny. You don't like Seed of Chucky, but I really do love Seed and Bride. I really do love the campy, just like, I know it has its issues and it's definitely not aged well, but just the turn, like, I love that franchise understood the assignment. It understood it could not, it's a doll and it can't be this serious, like, hard-hitting horror. They had to go comical because it's a doll and it's only so long you can keep that up. So I really do enjoy Seed and Bride, like, that together. I always consider them one little movie, just like a little prequel. But honestly, the first one is still my favorite. It's just brilliant for what it executed. You know, it was the first of its kind, I really think. I mean, we've had dolls come to life before, but the story behind it, someone who's giving their soul into a doll because they want to continue being a horrible person. I think that was
The Strangler.
Yeah, The Strangler. I think that's just genius of it. And the fact that Mancini has kept it alive this long, you know, they have 2 TV shows coming. I know one he's not involved with it, but the other one, you know, is happening. I love that they've taken that much care into Chucky. He deserves to be. I hope my kids get to grow up and watch Chucky movies, because I think
I do want to add, I'm a huge fan of Bride of Chucky. I think Bride of Chucky is great. I do love it. And in Seed of Chucky, I do love the kills. But I just think that there's too much unnecessary, like, I don't know. That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah,
but.
It's not great. I'm not gonna lie. The story is really off, but I love people that'll take a swing. Like, hey, we're gonna take a swing at a thing and it's gonna miss, but they really took a swing with that.
Oh, huge swing on that one. I don't know. I think the big thing for me is, like, maybe now that, you know, I'm a little older, they had a really, really interesting angle on the transgender with the doll, you know, with the son daughter. And I think that was the biggest swing and miss for me, is I don't like the way they handled the transgender issue there. They never really touched on it, you know. It's just like, I don't know. That's one thing that just bothered me about it. But
times.
Yep. Story for another day.
I have friends who are in the trans community that said they love it. So it depends on who you talk to. So
sure. Well, you're never going to please everybody.
No, you're never. Yeah. But
one last question I have about the Child's Play franchise as a whole. What is your opinion on, and we're probably going to be different here, your opinion on the Child's Play remake?
Oh, in the words of Aretha Franklin, beautiful gowns. I love Aubrey Plaza. She can do no wrong. And I think that kid is actually, you know what? Let me go back because I'm going to get in trouble. We had the woman who played the neighbor, who eventually gets in that horrible car accident. She came into our clubhouse room and she was fantastic. And she made me appreciate the movie so much more. I think what happens is I like remakes. Like, I know people hate them. Like, why do we do the remake? I think remakes have to happen. Like, there's new generations you introduce characters to, and it's fine. I think what happens is when you take away the heartbeat of a film, and it was a story. They took away Charles Lee Ray because they didn't have the rights to it. I understand that, but they didn't find an accurate heartbeat to that story that could have worked. And Mark Hamill is awesome, but I can hear Mark Hamill when I like look at the doll. There's something just so iconic about Charles Lee Ray. My sister Dejanay is actually the biggest horror fan in the world. Like, she's the queen. She doesn't have to do anything with the podcast, but she knows better than I do. She liked it. She accepts horror, even remakes, sequels, as a singular film. She doesn't look at them from the whole discography as a history. She looks at it, what is this film? And she enjoyed it. We went to see it in the theater and she's like, I liked it. So I have a ambivalent relationship with that remake because I do think the actors are very talented. I loved the risk. Again, they took a risk and they took a swing, but it felt very commercialized. You know, it felt like the Disney version of a Child's Play movie. Almost.
Yeah, I think it's my second favorite remake of all time. I'm with you.
Oh wow! Okay.
I don't think remakes are inherently bad. But what I don't like in a remake is like 1998 Psycho. I don't want to watch the exact same movie again with different actors. I want you to take the skin and bones and then add your own organs and your own skin to it and make it your own. And I love how they did that with Child's Play. I think the only remake I've ever seen that really hit me harder than the Child's Play remake was the Evil Dead remake from 2013. I think that's such an amazing remake. And
funny you say that though, because I like the Funny Games remake because it was a shot by shot from the director with, new actors, American actors. I like that he kept everything and I just got to watch it like in English. So
well, which one was it?
Funny Games.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, Funny Games is a invasion film that makes the strangers look like, Kids Bop. It was originally an Austrian film, and they the same director and writer of that movie did a remake of it in 2018 or 17 with Naomi Watts. So you have to watch it. If you have children, trigger warning, it is very difficult to watch if you have children. But
I have 3, so
okay, so just be careful because
that's all right. I don't like them anyway.
You don't like the kids, well then you'll love this movie because they didn't like it in this movie either. But watch it.
Is it streaming right now? Do you know?
I don't think it's streaming, but I know it's super cheap. It's probably like $3 if you wanted to rent it for a day.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna, so that way I could check it out. I definitely want to see it now because I love The Strangers, so that's something that I would love to do.
Yeah, this one takes it left.
Good. So we always end these with the same question. We're going to go back to Child's Play and we're going to give it a skull count. 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. We're not ranking it on production. We're not being critics. What we're doing here is just ranking on what it means to you and how much it affected you. So 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. You can use half and quarter skulls. What would your ranking of Child's Play be?
Well, Child's Play is going to get a solid 5 skulls from me just from the history we have together. Like, this movie made me smash all the porcelain dolls that I had collected from my grandmother for years. I had such a reaction to it. And now I have such a soft spot for it because one of my friends, Kim Garland, is writing, or she wrote on the new Chucky series. So it's come full circle for me. And I really thank Mancini and everyone who's involved with Child's Play for making it. It's still, F. Charlie, my cousin, for doing that. But I have, memory. I don't remember a lot of my childhood, but it's, the things that stick out the most, even the scary moments are just nice to go, wow, what a time that was. 1998, what a time. So it's going to get 5 skulls for me just for how it made me feel then and how it makes me feel now. I'll give it 5 solid skulls. And
perfect ranking. Like I said, I love this film. Child's Play 3 is one of my favorite horror films of all time. It's definitely up there.
But that one is not the military based one. That's the
that's the military based one.
Oh, it's the military based one. Yeah. Yep. It had the black kid in it. Awesome. Good choice.
Yeah. I absolutely love him. Tyler.
That's great. Tyler, that's right. You know what? Andy came to our clubhouse room and gave like a 3-hour Q&A about his, involvement in the Child's Play series. And I forgot all about that. He came too. It was really great. Great
That's
kid.
awesome.
And he revealed secrets that I cannot reveal. But we'll see. When you watch the new series, maybe.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the new series. It's going to be so awesome. I'm so excited for it.
I'm excited as well.
So everybody, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, make sure you're clicking the links down here in the description, giving her a follow on social media, as well as checking out the podcast. Don't go anywhere, Sade. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.